Things felt so easy for Josh Hoover on Saturday that I almost thought he was playing against 11 Darrion Grays. Oh my God. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back. I am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the trash defender that was mentioned in the earlier cold open, but you know me better as the host of Locked On Horned Frogs, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the number one sports podcast network in the country, Locked On Podcast Network. We're going to close out today's episode by taking a look at PFF's grades on the offensive line, how they have back-to-back strong performances as individuals and as a unit. But also, PFF got it completely wrong about the defense. Yes, I'm going to pick and choose. They got it right about the offensive line, terribly wrong about the defense, though. Let's kick this whole thing off with the seamless performance that was Josh Hoover's game against Cincinnati. I say that he looked like he was playing against 11 Darrion Grays because I think that the 11 Darrion Grays would have had just an equal amount of opportunities to slow down Hoover and probably had the same amount of success. Look, I played high school ball. I couldn't have made it to Cincinnati. I'm not trying to say that. But what I am saying is that Josh Hoover looked so good as a quarterback on Saturday that it almost felt like practice. Josh Hoover performed so well on Saturday that it felt like there was no stopping him. And the only relief that Cincinnati's defense got from Josh Hoover was the fact that TCU realized we don't have to throw the ball anymore. That was the biggest relief, because if he would have just continued to throw the ball, we're looking at a 400-yard day. We are. But because TCU was able to run the ball so well, they just continued to run it. But I don't want to speak about the running game as if it was a detraction to the day that Josh Hoover had. Not only was that not the case, Josh Hoover was still special. I would actually say it was a thing that boosted Hoover's performance. It took a lot of the weight off the shoulders of Josh Hoover. This is the type of offense that every team in the conference, every team in the country strives for. You have a quarterback like Hoover who you feel comfortable leading your offense. You have a quarterback like Hoover who you'll put up against anybody. You love your guy, but he doesn't have to do it all. No quarterback ever wants to have to do it all. No quarterback wants to have to throw 40 times. Quarterbacks desire a 22 pass attempt type of day. That's not something that Hoover gets to see often. It's not something that you saw much from him this year, if at all. But when you have the run game working the way that the run game was working on Saturday, you get the opportunity to do that. Josh Hoover's final stat line reads 19 of 22 for 306 yards and 4 touchdowns. Let's run that back. 19 of 22, that's 3 incompletions. 300 yards, that's 3 football fields. 4 touchdowns, that's more touchdowns than incompletions. That's how good he was on Saturday versus Cincinnati. Hoover was absolutely incredible. I stated that this was the best game that I had seen from TCU this season. Let me clarify that for a couple of reasons. One, I know that you had a great performance versus North Carolina, and that probably, not even probably, that was the most dominant game. I am taking points away from UNC. I think that they are just a terrible team. I don't necessarily feel like Cincinnati is great. I don't feel like Cincinnati is who they were during their 7-game win streak, but I do feel like Cincinnati is a competent opponent. I do feel like they are formidable, and had they defeated TCU, I say this in hindsight, had they defeated TCU, it still wouldn't have been a huge surprise. North Carolina, knowing we know about them, no way should they have had a chance to defeat TCU, and that's what they did. TCU handled business. But I feel like you were facing a better opponent. I feel like you put together, and some of this is kind of recency bias, to be fair. Not recency bias. It's bias of how the season turned out, where you didn't have that complete game for months. So when you finally deliver, it feels a little bit different as opposed to the beginning of the year. It's a little bit different of a scenario, admittedly. But what I'll say is this felt like the best game. And you even had a strong performance by the defense, contrary to what PFF may believe. I thought that the defense had multiple strong moments. But the star of this game was Jeremy Payne. And the guy right behind him, in my opinion, was Josh Hoover. The fact that we can have an argument about was it Hoover, was it McAllister, was it Payne, the fact that we can have those arguments tells you just how great that this offense was. I'm not willing to go as far as to say that this was Hoover's best game, but he didn't have any critical mistakes. He only had 3 incompletions, one of which was a throwaway. Another one was an out route to the wide side of the field to Jordan Dwyer that was a little bit too wide. I don't know if that was on. I heard Robert Griffin III speaking about how the feet should have gotten down for Dwyer and how they teach the receivers to do a little something. I'm going to take his word for it because to me, it looked like his feet was in the right place. It was just a tad bit half a foot was out of the bounds. Not the whole foot, half of a foot was out. So I don't even knock Hoover for that. I don't knock Dwyer for that. Just felt like a slight mix-up. And then the other one was just a pass that was a little too high on a screen ball directed to Dwyer. So once again, wide side of the field. So 3 incompletions. The fact that I can break down those incompletions in what felt like probably 45 seconds to a minute simply because I gave RG3's tale of what happened. But if I just broke it down for me, I could have knocked all of that out in 30 seconds. If you can break down your quarterback's incompletions play by play in 30 seconds to a minute, that tells you how good that your quarterback was that day. The fact that I can break down the only 3 incompletions he had, it takes me longer to talk about the touchdowns because he had 4 of those compared to 3 incompletions. Josh Hoover was absolutely on fire. He just was. And like I said, I think that the running game allowed him to do that. And it's a good thing he got his yards in the beginning of the game because they just stopped throwing the ball. After a while, it's just like, why are we throwing the ball? What are we getting from throwing the ball? We're dominating on the ground. There's no reason to change this up. So Hoover went 12 of 14 and had 3 touchdowns in the first half. 12 of 14 for 216 yards in the first half. He ended the day with 306 yards, but he only had 8 more attempts. He completed 7 of those, by the way, one of which was, I think that was the throwaway. No, that was the Dwyer throw. That was in the second half. You're looking at Hoover, like I said, they just stopped throwing the ball with him. In the fourth quarter, Hoover had 3 attempts. He had 5 attempts in the third quarter. Josh Hoover was amazing. Josh Hoover's stat line looks amazing. Josh Hoover's stat line could have been significantly better. Could have had 450 yards. But they threw the ball 8 times in the second half. I've seen them throw the ball 8 times in a quarter. That is and I don't want it to sound negative, right? Saying it could have been significantly better. It's just about TCU said, we don't need you to do that today. We don't need you to keep airing it out. Matter of fact, you look at the first quarter of this game, TCU threw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 passes in the first quarter. Josh Hoover had 7 passing attempts in the first quarter. He had 8 the entire second half because TCU had built up a big enough lead that they were able to take their foot off of the gas, or more so, they were able to change into cruise control. I think that's a better way to say it because you didn't lose any speed. You just changed the method of how you were driving. In the first half, you were airing it out. First half, you had 3 touchdowns through the air. But Jeremy Payne, Denman, right? Like these guys were allowing you to run and bleed the clock, but you weren't taking your foot off the gas because you were just as dominant on the ground as you were through the air. Hoover is going to finish his days at TCU. He's already an all-timer. He already is that. But he's going to go down at the top of the record books in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Knock on wood, God willing, he's able to stay healthy next year. He's going to pass that up probably halfway through the year. I think maybe 5 games. You're looking at he's at 70. And mind you, he still has the bowl game. So I think that is an important thing to mention is that he does still have the bowl game. But he's at 71 passing touchdowns. That's tied with Red Rocket Andy Dalton for 3rd all time. You have Duggan at 73. He may pass up Duggan on Saturday or whenever the bowl game is, right? Then you have Boykin at 86. He's not going to Hoover. I like Hoover. He's not going to get 15 touchdowns in the game. But he very well could get 15 passing touchdowns by week 5, week 6 of next year if things go well. He's currently at third in passing yards with 9,629. He needs another 1,011. He needs another 1,100 to pass up Boykin. Exactly 1,100. He may get that in the first 5 games of next year. They still have a bowl game. Would it be surprising to see Hoover go for 250 to 300, maybe get 2 to 3 touchdowns in this game? Now you're looking at someone who's in second place in touchdowns. He's still in third place in yards, but he just needs 700 to pass up Andy Dalton. That will happen. As long as he comes back, you will see a player in Josh Hoover who finishes his career as a Horned Frog, number 1 in passing touchdowns and number 1 in passing yards. It's just inevitable at this point. But what he did on Saturday was effortless. It was easy. It was smooth. Nothing really felt difficult. His ability to look off defenders and look at Eric McAllister and hit him right in stride. His accuracy on that throw to Manjack, the one that ended up being a fumble but recovered by Dwight, was amazing. He put it right where it needed to be. Josh Hoover was firing on all cylinders. No interceptions, no ugly plays, nothing to look at. And allow me to bring it back one last time. Hoover had 4 touchdowns compared to 3 interceptions. Anytime I can say that my quarterback had more touchdowns than interceptions, he's cooking. Point blank, period. Let's move forward and take a look at the defense because Pro Football Focus, you got it wrong. I use you every week, but this week, you got it wrong. The defense did not have a poor game. I actually believe that they had a very timely and impressive game. Let's get into that as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks, and I've given Omaha Steaks as a gift for the last 3 years. Once I bought them for myself, I've never been a selfish guy. I just want to spread the love. I want to spread the knowledge. I want to give you an Omaha Steak so that you give her an Omaha Steak, so that she gives him an Omaha Steak, and he gives him one, and he gives her one, and everybody in here is getting Omaha Steaks, and now we all yelling Omaha more than Peyton Manning in his prime. That is my desire. So please take my word for it when I tell you Omaha Steak is gift giving made easy. It's the holidays made easy. You don't have to go to this place or this place or this place or this place. Go to omahasteaks.com and I guarantee you, you can get something for all of your loved ones because it's not just beef, right? Yes, the quality is what I hope for. It's tender, it's rich, it's amazing. But they also have burgers, comfort meals. They have sides, desserts. It's one of the gifts that is one size fits all. It's truly for anyone. So save big on unforgettable gifts at omahasteaks.com. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off your select favorites during their cyber sale and for an additional $35 off. Use the promo code college at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code college. Terms apply. See site for details. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Big 12. Also, I'll be back here at about 6:15, 6:30 to break down some early signing day things, why I feel like they need to stop doing early signing day. It's kind of related to Lane Kiffin. It's kind of related to the Horned Frogs. We're going to make sure that we tie all this in, but it's college football at the end of the day. Like that, it does, in my opinion, present an interesting conversation that I hope that you will tune in and kind of converse with me as we brainstorm and talk about some of my issues with why I think early signing day needs to just be put to bed. Anywho, right now, PFF is completely wrong on the TCU defense and their performance versus Cincinnati. Now, I do like to use PFF. This is a tool that I enjoy to bring to you every single Tuesday. It's one of my favorite topics to do. It's consistent. It allows me to read and react. It allows me to see if the PFF metric agrees with my eye test. I have never held it up as the holy grail. I have never looked at it as the end-all, be-all. And sometimes you have to disagree. This is one of those times. It is a source. But when they tell me that TCU's defense grades as a 64.3, I say, that is the second worst performance by the defense this year per PFF. Per Pro Football Focus, a 64.3 was only outdone by the 54.1 against BYU. Now, BYU, I do agree, was the worst performance by the defense all year long, and I thought that they needed a bounce back. And I said that, and they gave me that because against Houston, they had a 76 even. I don't think that the performance against Cincinnati was the second worst. I just don't. I don't think that's fair at all. And instead of just comparing it, I don't think it's fair to say it was a bad game. I think that when you look at multiple stats, you see a team that was, I'll say, timely, which is the way I used to describe the defense very often. But let's break down these offensive possessions by Cincinnati. I know the 23 points is not steel curtain level, but it's also not allowing a lot, right? I actually thought that this was a game that was more on par with the Kansas State matchup, maybe. Well, Kansas State was right there. Kansas State's number 3, so maybe. But it doesn't feel right. And in that game, I didn't feel like Kansas State played that bad. So obviously I disagree with, I didn't feel like TCU defense played that bad against Kansas State either. But I did feel like once it started rolling. And that's my comparison of TCU allowed Cincinnati to get hot for a good 3 drives. 3 drives in a row. They got hot. But outside of those 3 drives, they did not do much. And that's why I didn't think that this game was that bad. To me. So let's go drive by drive, and we're going to go in chronological order. First drive, 4 and out, because they went for it on 4th down, not because they got a first down on the first play. 4 and out, go for it on 4th and 1, doesn't get it. Second drive, 3 and out. Now, drive 3 is where the Bearcats did pick it up, admittedly so. Touchdown, field goal. Boom, you rattling them off. And I think when that field goal happened, I asked, are we in store for a shootout? No, we're not, because that was the end of it. They scored 16 points on those drives. 17 points on those drives. Can't count. But they scored 17 points on those drives. Okay, cool. They don't score again until the 4th quarter. Now, the next drive is halftime. That's cool, whatever. But when you come out of halftime, you go 3 and out. You actually go backwards. The next drive, you have a pair of big catches. Yes, you end up getting 55 yards down the field, but you go for it on 4th and medium, 4th and 5. You try to throw a little ball out there. The receiver sees Jamel Johnson coming, drops it. Jamel Johnson still hits him, still rocks him, still a good hit. It has no doubt that was going to be a tackle, even if the player had caught it. I know he's a running back. I know he can be agile. I know he can make a move. This was a stop. Turnover on downs, TOD. Then you go in, you get a good one, 94 yards, touchdown drive. That's probably the best one you have. It's the longest drive you have. It ends up being a touchdown, but it's the only other thing you did outside of that spurt. So now I'm looking at the next drive, you get 3 and out, for the record. That was the final drive of the game. If I'm not counting the drive right before halftime, because it was only 23 seconds left, I'm not counting that. That's incomplete, N/A, not applicable. You have 8 drives, 4 of which you don't get a first down. TCU kept Cincinnati from having a first down on 4 separate drives. Oh, you have 9, excuse me. But first drive, 4 and out, no first down. Second drive, 3 and out, no first down. You go 3 and out on the final drive. First drive at halftime, 3 and out. So that's 4 drives where you don't get any first downs. Then you have 4 scoring drives, and the last one is one where you got some momentum, you got down the field, but you were in 4 down territory, and you had a turnover on downs. So 0 for 2 on 4th down. That should count for something to me. 4 drives of not allowing any first downs. You have just as many scoring drives if you have drives without first downs. That should reflect well, in my opinion, on the defense. Because it's not easy. It's one thing to get a stop. It's another thing to not allow a first down on 4 different drives. I just felt like this game, I felt like this team was a little bit better than the grade had reflected. I felt like this team was a little bit better than PFF gave credit for. Because when you look at what they were able to do, when you break it down, PFF says that the run defense was horrendous. The run defense was a 63, which is 6 points lower than any other game this year. Okay, so as we got loose a little bit, I didn't feel like the run defense was overly bad. I did feel like they got some things going in the passing attack. So I'll give them that. That wasn't something that they did particularly well either. This was graded as 6th best. That was average. 6th worst. Your 63.4 was average. Or 62.7. Sorry, I looked at the wrong thing. Their 63.4 pass rush, that was solid. That was solid. They haven't done a great job rushing the passer all year. That grade will put them 4th. In retrospect to the other games that they've had, that was the best part of their game this week. So I don't agree with PFF. I don't agree with Pro Football Focus at all about how they're grading this. I don't think it was that bad. I think there was some plays offensively. There was some bend but don't break moment. For the most part, though, I thought they were pretty stout. And second worst game of the year, only to BYU. I can't co-sign that. I just can't. So let's keep pushing though, because in better news, the offensive line, this was great. The top three is all expected, but the offensive line was a great surprise, and we're going to break that down as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. I don't care what you're trying to go see. I really don't. If you're trying to go see a Monster Jam, if you're trying to go to the circus, if you're trying to go to the TCU bowl game, it has it all, right? I'm trying to go to a concert, music, entertainment, sports. I know we do a sports podcast, but I'm sure you, like me, have many other interests that you like to partake in. And Game Time allows you to go be there face-to-face in person with your favorite artist, your favorite team, your favorite piece of entertainment, whether that's theater, ballet, or anything in between. Game Time is there for everything. Now, if you've never used Game Time before, lucky you. Use the code Locked On College, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. I remember when I was able to use my $20 off. Now I'm up to my 20th purchase. So go ahead and go to Game Time today. Download the app, create an account, and once again, use the code Locked On College to get $20 off your first purchase. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, TCU's offensive line has been heavily discussed, has been heavily brutalized all year long, questioned and absolutely blasted. But these last 2 weeks, they have picked it up. We talked yesterday about how the running game has been the most welcomed addition to the TCU offense in the last 2 weeks of the season. That's because the running game has been absolutely spread out by great blocking. The holes are bigger. Now you can get in there and you can actually run through a gap. You can actually get to the second line, or the second level of the defense without feeling like you're going to be contacted before you get there. You're going to be one-on-one with linebackers at times. You're actually getting up to linebackers at the offensive line and making contact there. You actually see strong blocking, and it's something that you hadn't had pretty much all year. I want to go to individuals, and then we're going to bring it back to a unit aspect. The last 2 weeks, you've seen 2 offensive linemen in the top 5 of PFF grading. Now, technically this week, Ben Taylor Whitfield was at number 6, but Nate Palmer only had 8 snaps. So I'm not counting him. It's like the guy who only has 3 catches, and his 3 catches somehow went for 20 yards. He's not leading the league in yards per reception. There's a minimum that we need to have. There is a certain threshold that we need to have. 8 snaps is not that threshold. So you're taking him out. You have Cooper Powers, who slides up to number 4, and you have Ben Taylor Whitfield, who slides up to number 5. You also have Colton Deary and Carson Bruno, who are at 8 and 9. They're actually tied. They both have a 65 even. That wasn't the case for most of the year. For you to see 4 offensive linemen in the top 10 of PFF grades, 2 offensive linemen in the top 5, you got to look at Cooper Powers had a 70.7. Ben Taylor Whitfield is at a 68.5. Let's go to last week. So if you go to last week, Bruno, 72.2. Cooper Powers, 70.8. Ben Taylor Whitfield at number 6 with a 68. You're looking at 3 right there. And then you have Colton Deary, with a 66.9. So that's 4 offensive linemen in the top 10. 2 offensive linemen in the top 5. That just was not the case. For all year long, it was, hey, TCU can pass block pretty well. Run blocking, not necessarily their cup of tea. So now that we've looked at the units, we've seen that Coach Nderi is there. We've seen that Bruno is there. Those were pretty steady in their placement. Let's look at the offense as a whole, as a pass blocking team. 85.7. There's a reason, and that's the best of the season. There's a reason that Josh Hoover was able to only have 3 incompletions. It's because he wasn't under pressure all day. He wasn't under pressure all day. You look at the run blocking grade of a 73.7. That's good for 4th best. Let's read the ones above it. Abilene Christian, FCS competition. Houston, last week when I told you that they're playing at a very high level, they had a 79.8. North Carolina. I literally came on here. One of my first episodes, I think my 3rd episode I did, it was about how what did I call it? I called it the secret weapon. But I think it was duo. No, it wasn't duo. I can't remember what that run play was called. But it was the one on which you seen Kavorian Barnes score his long touchdown. I came on here and I literally did a breakdown. I literally did a breakdown of the run blocking scheme for TCU. In my first week being here. It's crazy saying that now because we talked about how bad the run blocking was for most of the year. But the highest ranked running game was one where I did a literal film study, a breakdown on run schemes in that. The second one was, I just told you last week, they've discovered the run over the last 2 games. The third one was against FCS competition. And the 4th one was this Cincinnati matchup at a 73.7. I'm actually pretty surprised that the Kansas State game isn't up here because I thought they did that pretty well, that one. Also, let me say this about the Baylor game. I feel like I do not give the Baylor game the credit it deserves as an offensive performance because in almost every metric you look at, that game ranks very high. But I don't think about that game often. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the lightning delays and it was just all disjointed. But I don't really think about that game a lot. That game kind of floats under my radar. I'm not going to say everybody's radar, but that game, of course, the meaningfulness of the game, but the actual offensive display in those 60 minutes flies a little under the radar for me. But you're looking at a team that has absolutely stepped up over the last 2 weeks. A unit, that has absolutely stepped up. You're looking at Josh Hoover. Josh Hoover was under pressure on 4 dropbacks. 4 dropbacks. He got 2 passes off. 1 big time throw, by the way. But I'm trying to see. He was sacked one time. So I guess he must have ran the other one. That doesn't add up. But he's 2 for 2, had 1 sack. He even had a first down, but he was barely under pressure the whole time. That to me is a testament of what they have done. Now, Sarah joins us tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about, is it satisfying? The end of the season, is there satisfaction? It's something we spoke about 2 weeks ago. I said, hey, you win your last 2 games, I think it'll be satisfaction. Obviously, that's my answer. We'll see what Sarah has to say tomorrow. In the meantime, in between time, until next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.